Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're talking about fantasy football wide receiver rankings for 2020. We're specifically finally talking about wide receiver ones. These are the wide receivers that you want to target in the earliest rounds of your fantasy draft. We're talking 1 through 3, basically. Let's start this fantasy football podcast right meow.
Hit it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Upside. I am Justin and that is Kyle. And we always like to start off by saying thank you. Thanks for stopping by our Fantasy Football podcast and YouTube channel. You know, it's really appreciative that you stop by and hang out with us for a few minutes, and hopefully we can make you laugh and, get a little fantasy football information on the side. But today we're going to continue our updated wide receiver rankings and wrapping up this round of rankings with wide receiver ones. The last 2 episodes we gave you were wide receiver 3s and wide receiver 2s. So definitely feel free to check out those episodes by clicking the links in the description below, or Kyle Point. You can find some of those up there. What do you got for me, Kyle?
Make sure you hit that subscribe button, guys,
Yep.
and click that bell so you get notified every time that we upload the best fantasy football podcasts on the internet. And let's go ahead and dive right in here.
Let's do it.
Get started with our wide receiver ones, finally, right?
Yes.
Our updated rankings for the midsummer here. And at number 12, we have Amari Cooper of the Cowboys. Both of us, I think, like Amari Cooper. I think I like him a little bit more than you do. I trust him a little bit more.
Yeah.
Last year was his best year, obviously. I mean, by far it was his best year. And it was his first full season with the Cowboys, his first full season with a quarterback who is decently accurate. I think Dak makes some missed throws every once in a while, throws with the wrong shoulder. Nothing
Right.
like Trubisky or Derek Carr,
Right.
who obviously and regularly missed the throws. But last year there was a downswing with him toward the, I want to say around week 10, 11, 12 in that neighborhood. And it was very easily attributed to an injury. And nothing really came out about him like working through that injury or like playing through that injury. But I think a lot of people were saying or could see that most likely he was on the field as a decoy for the most part. Like there were games where he didn't have a single catch or even a single target.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the game that he got injured in fact, he like came onto the field after the injury and then didn't get targeted a single time after that. And you could see him just kind of casually coming off the line. So I think that you could give him a credit for having played through the injury to some extent, right? But this guy, he's a premier wide receiver. I mean, he's solid. And if you're getting him as the wide receiver 12, I think that's a great friggin' value right there. I mean, that's insane.
Absolutely.
In my opinion. So what do you have for me on him?
Yeah, it's one of those things where hopefully this year he's not going to be a decoy because they just gave him $100 million. So most likely they're going to think he's not going to be a decoy, but I get what you're saying. Like there was a lot of times where you can see like he was just hampered and he just played through it to help out the Cowboys, and I think that was the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And
he got paid for it.
He got paid for it. He did.
Got paid.
But I mean, this guy was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Or something like that.
Yeah, like 4 years ago or something.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, he is talented, and there's a reason, like you said, like he went from Derek Carr to Dak Prescott, which is a decent step up, and I just see another year together. Yeah, and you mentioned
also what offense is he in now?
Yeah, Mike McCarthy offense, like it pumps out wide receiver ones.
Yeah,
and hey, this is his team still.
Yeah, until Michael Gallup usurps that from him, which I think will eventually happen. I think we both kind of think it could
happen because of that contract that they just gave Amari. You know what I mean?
True.
Like it's going to be hard for the team to be like, okay, let's give Gallup wide receiver 1 targets. It's going to be tough to do that because of that contract.
Yeah.
So okay, up next we have AJ Brown of the Tennessee Titans, and talk about a rocket ship, man.
Mm-hmm.
This. It's tough for rookie wide receivers to really perform in this league. And what he did, especially in that second half of the season, was just unbelievable. The guy was just wrecking people. And I think he averaged over 20 yards a catch, which I think he was second in the league behind, I think, Mike Williams. And I mean, we were, cutting hairs there with how close they were between the two of them. And he stepped up, and there's not a whole lot of competition behind him. You would think Corey Davis would be competition as another top 10 pick. Adam Humphries, I think, is there. They gave him a bunch of money, but it's A.J. Brown's team when it comes to wide receiver. And, I mean, this is a run-heavy team. They have Derrick Henry. They have Darrington Evans that we really like. And they're going to run a lot of play action, and that means A.J. Brown can get open down the field, and that's where they're looking for him.
Yeah.
So,
I've heard him.
I hope the volume. That's the thing is I think both of us is what we're looking for is there's enough targets for him. He is definitely better in a non-PPR league compared to a PPR league.
Yeah. He's got nobody to compete with for targeting really. And that's great for him because he is in such a low volume passing offense. Like that's the problem. If he starts splitting, then there's no way he's a wide receiver one. It just isn't going to happen. Which is kind of sad because I think if you put him on the Lions, I think people start talking about him as the second coming of Megatron. To be completely honest, I mean, this dude is like Calvin Johnson.
He's built just like a Greek god too.
He's just he's on an offense with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, and so who's going to get the ball? It's going to be Derrick Henry a lot. So I like him. I think he's got a great amount of potential. I would like him better if he were on an offense that threw a whole lot more.
Oh, yeah.
Put him down in Atlanta, and that's gangbusters then, right? All right, let's move on. Let's move on here. Number 10, another guy who has been equated to Megatron a little bit before is Mike Evans with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This one, I think I'm a little bit, probably a little bit harder
you're definitely
on him
a little more
than
down.
You are.
Yeah, you're definitely a little more down on him than I am.
I'm not.
You got him at 12, and I think I have him at 8. So we're not kind that crazy far off.
Yeah, but you're kind of splitting hairs when you really get down to it. This is a team that did last year support 2 wide receiver ones.
Yep.
And there's no reason to believe that he's not going to be a wide receiver 1 this year. I think it's entirely possible that he still finishes inside the top 10. I just don't see both of them being inside the top 10. I think that's my problem with it. So I'm picking one over the other. And I think that, Mike Evans has been in the league, maybe I think it's 5 years now. He's entering his 6th season, I believe.
Yeah. And he's still super young, I believe too.
Yeah. And he's a phenomenal pass catcher. Mm-hmm. And I do think that Brady is going to really like throwing to him. I just see that his type of routes that he's usually winning on majorly are down the sidelines, along the sideline. And that hasn't been Tom Brady's forte since Randy Moss, basically. And
Never
so,
heard of him.
And so that's why I'm a little bit higher on Godwin than I am on Evans. And so that's why I've got him where I do. I think that breaks it down for you.
And that's why we haven't mentioned Chris Godwin yet.
Yeah.
But, it's definitely one of those things where Mike Evans always kind of is at the top of the league when it comes to average depth of target. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, that's because, for all the sporadic accuracy of Jameis Winston, he still had a monster arm. He can get it down the field. And, at one point, Tom Brady could get it down the field, hence Randy Moss. Yeah. It's just, Tom doesn't quite have that arm anymore. So they'll probably figure out different kind of route tree kind of things for Mike Evans to get him involved because he is still so dang talented.
Oh, yeah.
But it's definitely true. Like if you're looking at Chris Godwin, who plays mostly in the slot, and Mike Evans, who plays on the outside, give me a little bit more Chris Godwin. That's for dang sure. But we're still, once again, splitting hairs. I mean, he still could probably finish as a top 12 wide receiver, where we have him right now.
Yep.
So, all right, up next, we have DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers. And, another one of those rocket ships. DJ Moore, I think he still finished as the 18th best in standard scoring last year. And so we have that. We're at 9 now. But he definitely did take a bunch of strides in that second year last year, especially with the kind of suspect QB play. I don't know how long Cam Newton was in there. Not very long.
No, it wasn't. It was like 2 games, I think.
Yeah, so he had, Kyle Allen was most of the season, I think. Mm-hmm. There might have been a Will Greer sighting, but that was bad too. I don't know.
That might have,
So it's, he did really well with the QB play that there was. And now with the new coach, Matt Rule, and a new quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, Teddy's a smart quarterback. I think he's going to look at that wide receiver room and like, okay, DJ Moore is freaking talented with the ball in the hand. So let's go ahead and get him the ball as much as possible. So that's why I think there's going to be a good amount of volume in this offense for wide receiver, and I think DJ Moore is going to get the most of it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Matt Rule ran down in it was Baylor, right?
Baylor, Temple, and
but at Baylor, I looked at some of the stats, and I think it was like 90% of the time they were in 3 wide. He's got a fancy new car here, though, right? He's got Christian McCaffrey, and that's phenomenal. That's going to alter the way he runs his offense and sets it up, and so there is that, but at the same time, he's going to look and see, I've also got DJ Moore, who he's on the upswing here. He's entering his third, or I think he's entering his 4th year.
I think it's his third, actually.
Is it his third? Okay.
Yeah.
And so, he's got a little bit of depth behind him. He does have some good pass catchers behind him. But Teddy Bridgewater is a solid QB. Like, he really was a good QB until he got derailed by that injury in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so I see no reason why DJ Moore couldn't perform. My concern would just be if it gets split a little much. If it gets split a little too much, that he's not getting, the predominant amount of targets. That's the real problem.
Yeah,
but I don't think
you got Curtis Samuel, you got Robbie Anderson, and I mean, you don't want to ignore the fact that Robbie Anderson actually played at Temple when Matt Rule was there. There's no coincidence there that's a thing. So but that is the one kind of.
I might be bigger than Robbie Anderson though. So
thicker, yeah.
He's a tiny dude. All right, so let's move on here. Number 8, we have
Robbie. Don't hurt us.
Yeah, we have Allen Robinson with the Bears.
Yeah.
This is highly dependent on the QB, in my opinion. I think that if it's Trubisky, you've got to move him down. You've got to move Robinson down your board a little bit.
Yeah,
to the area of low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. If it's Foles, I firmly believe in our ranking with him at number 8. Now, there was a scare this week that there was a rumor for a minute or two that Foles was opting out of the season. And apparently Foles has said that ain't true. I'm appearing tomorrow at camp.
I immediately went to Twitter on that one and tried to dig.
Yeah. Well, I think it started on Twitter too.
Yeah.
Shocker. So, I mean, look, you've got until next Tuesday. I think we were talking about that. We think it's next Tuesday is the deadline for opt-out. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that shakes out. So our rankings right now are pretty accurate, we think. All these opt-outs might change some of that. I mean, like right now, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has moved up our board a bit because we know he's not competing with we're
not going crazy
Damien
like some people are putting him in the top 7 or something.
Dude, I've seen him at 5. And I'm like,
that's just
what are you talking about? Which guy is coming out of your top 5?
Yeah. Like, you're jumping Derrick Henry for him? Okay.
I guess so.
Okay, sport.
Yeah. So what do you have for me on Allen Robinson? Look, it's dependent. Like I said, I mean, he's a volume hog. He's going to get the most targets.
It is dependent on who the QB is, and that's just based off of maybe that catch percentage going up because he's still got a ton of targets. He got 154 last year,
but everything was contested.
Percentage was only 64
because he was like 7th or something in contested catches.
Of course he was. I mean, Trubisky throwing him the ball.
Trubisky's
he could have been wide open, and he made that contested eventually. He contested with the ground.
Well, Allen Robinson's a very good wide receiver. A very good wide receiver at getting
very
open.
Good wide receiver. Do yourself a favor. After our video, go check out Allen Robinson route running, and it's just sick. I mean, he's another year removed from the ACL injury that he had, and I mean, that was whenever he was with the Jaguars.
Yeah.
And whenever he's signed with the Bears. So he's another year removed, but the guy is still 27 years old and feels like he's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you get this guy another 150-plus targets, even if it is Trubisky, I think you can still return a nice little investment for you at wide receiver 8 that we have him at.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So up next, we've already kind of mentioned him, but it's Chris Godwin, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I don't know how much more we really need to get into it, but it's a slot wide receiver. It is Tom Brady. He loves slot wide receivers.
Slot wide receiver who was, number 2 last year.
Yeah.
He's got
another
an
big
upgrade
jump.
at QB. Yeah.
Yes, I mean we talked about this in one of our other episodes just recently, and it was talking about Calvin Ridley. So it was our last episode, and Ridley's going around 16, 17, 18th wide receiver going into drafts, and he could finish as a top 2 wide receiver potentially. And that's Chris Godwin. He went in being like the 18th best wide receiver last year according to ADP, and he finished second. And that was with Jameis Winston as a quarterback. So that shows you how talented this guy is, especially in the slot. And
he wasn't working down the field as much as Mike Evans too. So like it wasn't like he needs to have that big arm to get him the ball.
There was least chances of Jameis Winston missing him, I think, with shorter throws compared to longer throws.
Well, I think it's also that his route tree was more limited because he was coming out of the slot. And so his if you actually want to go back and look at a game by game breakdown between Evans and Godwin to see, it was flipping back and forth, and it was like, well, who's the better one out of it? And the actual like denominator, the thing to figure out between the two is that one beats zone and the other one beats man coverage.
Yeah.
And Evans beats man coverage because he's working on the outside. He's on an island. All he's got to do is beat one guy. And Godwin wins in zone coverage because he's running down the seams. He's running the routes that tight ends are running.
Opening.
He's running the routes that tight ends run in normal offenses, right? But this isn't a normal offense. This is a Bruce Arians offense where they don't use the tight end to run routes. And so
tight ends?
What a tight end? Yeah. So all of those targets that would go to tight ends were going to Godwin as well, right? So this is why he is 7th for us, is because he gets extra targets just based on the fact that what's that?
He's
Give me a weird look. Oh,
he's
7.
7.
Yeah, he's 7.
7 miles an hour.
Yeah, so like he's getting all these extra targets that tight ends usually get in an offense.
Yeah.
Plus he's getting the slot targets. So, and he gets open because he's a good route runner.
He's a dang good.
Got to be if you're going to win the slot, right?
Yep.
All right, let's move on here to number 6. We have Tyreek Hill with the Chiefs.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'll let you go ahead and talk.
Yeah, I'll talk here. Yeah. Well, you know what? A lot of people are really high on Tyreek Hill. I've seen him go as 2nd off the board, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
I've seen it in a PPR league where he goes like 3rd. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how do you – have you watched him play? The dude, he catches 4 passes a game, guys. Like, that's what he does. Like, a high for him is like 6 passes that he caught. He might get targeted 10 times. He ain't going to catch them all. But that's because he literally gets 80 yards down the field when the ball gets to him, and he's got 3 guys hanging on him while he goes up to get the ball. And, I mean, if there's anybody who outruns Mahomes' arm, it's him, and it's crazy. But the reason we have him at 6 is because of volume. He is a little bit more streaky than most people. He's going to have really high bursts output for you, but he's going to have games that he just absolutely misses on. I think that it's been kind of crazy that in the short time that he's been in the league, that he has been fairly dominant from a season-long perspective. Yeah. From a week-over-week perspective, he can flat out win a week for you by himself, or he could hurt you. And if you're going to spend really high on Tyreek Hill, you're putting a lot of draft capital in that spot where you're missing out on those guys who are going to be more consistent for you. And so that's why we don't have him in our top 5, is because you really need that consistency. If you spend like consistent high output, if you're spending that kind of draft capital. Tyreek Hill in the 1st round, that's a mistake. Do not do that. And that is happening.
Don't be that
very
guy.
Regularly. Yeah, don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
That's happening. So what do you have? You want to add anything on Tyreek?
Just a quick little bit. I think out of our top 12 wide receiver, he's the biggest boomer bust kind of guy. Like you just mentioned, I mean, he could get you 30 points or he can get you 4 or 5. And it just really kind of depends. You don't know when those weeks are, because it's not like something where it comes to man and zone or anything like that. No, it's just dependent on if he gets those targets from Mahomes and he hits on those. Yeah, he could get you 4 catches and 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, or he can get you 2 catches for 20 yards and you just busted out of that week. So that's Well,
but that's why you have to have your team built differently. You can't just rely on him. And if you're spending that high of a draft pick for him, you kind of are. That's the problem. That's the
And he's
problem. If
not
you're
gonna
spending a
fall in
first round
drafts
pick on
either.
that guy, you
He's
can't
not
spend
going
a
to
first
fall
round
either.
pick.
So it's almost like maybe let someone else draft him,
Yeah,
and just hopefully you're not going against that team whenever he
dude,
has a
just
boom
pat
week.
the guy on the back when he takes him in the first round. Just like
Yeah.
say, heck yeah, dude, thanks a lot. You helped me out. Because like
Thanks,
you
buddy.
just made a mistake. That's
Yeah.
one guy you don't have to worry about. Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah. All right.
So
Let's
up
see
next,
here. What do you have for
we
me?
want you to be that guy on the next one, and that's Kenny Golladay, and that's
yeah.
at number 5. Like I said, so we are definitely higher on him than a lot of other people. And yes, you are really high on him. I'm high on him, not as much as you. Okay, go ahead and tell the audience what's your ranking for Kenny Golladay.
I have Kenny Golladay at 3.
At 3.
At 3.
At 3. And that's where I think he could finish this year, is at number 3. And as long as Stafford's playing, of course. And that's all kind of dependent on him.
Everybody's that way, though. As long as their QB is there, every wide receiver is always, as long as their QB is
dependent
healthy,
on the QB. Oh, yeah, especially at this, top 12 wide receivers. I mean, you could have some terrible QB play and still be pretty relevant in fantasy football, but you can't be talking top 3 or, at 5th here.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where I just wish he would get the targets that a number 1 wide receiver should get. Last year, he actually finished 24th in average targets per game, but I think that has to do with some of the QB play. It was only massed ever for the first 8 weeks, and they were still they were throwing the ball around to him, Marvin Jones, and Amendola. Yeah, Amendola. Freaking number 2 pencil. What the hell are you doing? Why do you have him on the field as well? I'm sorry. That was a little rant. But if he gets the targets that he deserves, look out, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Look out.
I think if he's featured in that offense like he should be featured,
25 plus.
Yeah, he's third. Yeah.
Target share.
I've thought to myself, is there anybody who's going to unseat Michael Thomas? And there's just a few guys that I think that if Michael Thomas falls back a little bit, there's just a few guys who could do it. And Kenny Golladay is one of those guys. Like I see it potentially happening. If everything goes right, he could do it. So Godwin's another guy who could potentially do it. And, so like there's just a few guys in the league who I think could unseat Michael Thomas for number 1. So, all right, let's move on here to number 4. We've got DeAndre Hopkins of the Cardinals. I think you're a little higher on Hopkins than I am, but we both like Hopkins a lot. We like it because the volume of that offense is in the passing game is going to be
actually came back down a little bit. Yeah. I think I came back down a little bit whenever we did our update here. So I think we're pretty close to similar.
Okay. We might both have them at 4. I'm not sure. That's entirely possible as
you
well.
have them at 5. I have them at 4.
Okay.
So, we're really close there.
Yep. Right, it's splitting hairs at that point.
Yep.
We both like the volume in that offense. We like Kyler Murray to have an increase in skill this year, or just an understanding of that offense, to have the playbook fully opened up for him. And Hopkins is just a preeminent talent who is he's a tactician. He's going to go to work in that offense, and he's going to make sure that he knows what he needs to know to be up to speed. He's going to work with Kyler Murray to make sure that he's on the same page. And wide receiver ones, they usually have a dip in that first year because they have trouble getting on the same page with the QB. This QB is working really hard to get on the same page with everybody right now because he's entering his second year. But he knows that he's got future Hall of Famer DeAndre Hopkins that Bill O'Brien's asleep on, apparently. So what do you have on him?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it there. It's like, I say this every time we bring him up, is like, how the hell do you wake up one day and as Bill O'Brien be like, you know what, I'm going to trade DeAndre Hopkins today. It just doesn't make any sense. And the reason why I actually think in our 2 earlier rankings, I think I had him at number 2, and I did bring him down a little bit to number 4. I mean, not a whole heck of a lot, but it is that first year in a new offense, traded to a new team, and signing with a new team as well. That's, I look at, OBJ and some other, wide receivers that in the past have been wide receiver 1s, and then kind of a little bit busted that first year with a new team. So I kind of faded just a little bit, but we're still not talking too much. So it is one of those things where Cliff Kingsbury, I think he is improving as a coach and a play caller in this league, and they're going to find ways to get DeAndre Hopkins open. And one thing is he's not going to beat you with speed. but he's going to beat you with route running and getting open in certain ways because he's that crafty veteran, and that's one of those guys that's going to age well too because he's not dependent on speed.
Yeah,
absolutely. So
all right, who do you have?
I'm really looking forward to the Cardinals' offense this year, though, just to see what it looks like with Hopkins in that jersey.
Well, really and I think that Kenyon Drake is going to bring something to the table that they were missing until he was there last year, and
obviously,
their offense changed when he was there, and he changed. He changed. So, who do you have for us at 3 here?
Yeah, number 3 we have Julio Jones, and talk about a guy that doesn't change because he just dominates every year.
Just gets it done.
He just gets it done. Like you said, he just gets it done every year. But it's still one of those weird
unless
things
it's in the end zone.
That's what I was getting ready to say. It's like, why? Tell me. Okay, Dirk Cutter, I know you're not listening, of course, but we talk about you a lot because we actually praise you when it comes to fantasy football. Maybe not in other facets of football. But why does this guy not get the volume that he deserves in the end zone? And, maybe it's just the fact that Matt Ryan does love to throw to tight ends and Calvin Ridley in that red zone or, end zone area.
Mm-hmm.
But he still, I don't know, he still finishes the top of everything else when it comes to yards, targets, receptions. He still finishes at the top of everything. That's not going to change for at least a couple more years, I think, when it comes to Julio.
Yeah, I mean he's just 31, I believe.
Yeah,
he's still fairly young for the amount of like yards and targets and everything that he's accrued over his career. And for a while in his career, he just couldn't get his ankles healthy. Like he had the same problem that Calvin Johnson was having, essentially.
Steph Curry issue as well.
Yeah, and so. He's gotten past that to some extent, it seems, and I think that having Ridley out there has helped to an extent because that is drug away a little bit of the focus that was on him that was constantly causing him to get injured because he was getting double teamed and hit every time that he was targeted, and
there was that gap between Roddy White and Calvin Ridley.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of what we're talking about. That was
Yeah, well, I mean, Roddy White was the one on that team before Julio took it over, and it's just like you see this unbroken chain between them. Eventually, Julio will move on, and it will be Calvin Ridley's team. I don't think Russell Gage will be the number 2 at that point, but But anyway, that's who we've got at number 3 is Julio Jones.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you're getting if you're drafting Julio Jones. You really do.
You do.
All right. And then at number 2, we have Davante Adams with the Packers, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Adams is a solid wide receiver. It's difficult to keep him up here at number 2 for me because I don't see that offense having enough volume in the passing game. If you look at 2018 to 2019, there's 100 fewer targets in that offense. And so they go from being number 6 in targets in 2018 to 20th. That is a dramatic drop.
Mm-hmm.
And we knock AJ Brown for being in a low volume offense, but being the only target other than Jonnu Smith.
Right.
Davante Adams, I mean, it just takes one guy catching on, right? And then he potentially loses a great deal of the volume that he has. I think people are drafting him this high, and I like him this high if he's the only thing that's being targeted, which kind of is what's going on. It's him and the running backs, right? It's him and Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
So in the second year of Matt LaFleur's offense, are they going to focus on the run even more? I don't know. I think that they're kind of comfortable where they are. But I went and watched a few highlights of Adams and Rodgers just to try to see I was watching some commentary about Rodgers because Rodgers just this week was on some podcast where he basically said, I know I'm not going to be on this team eventually.
Yep.
And you see some of these highlights with Adams, and I watched breakdowns that Adams breaking down what he's doing and stuff. And he doesn't do things the way you're supposed to do them, but they work because he's just that good at doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's dominant. So what do you want to add on him?
Yeah, he's dominant. Yeah, you mentioned he's the run-heavy offense, but when the ball is coming out of Aaron Rodgers' hands, it's going to him. And that's evidenced by he had a 31% target share last year.
Yeah.
So let's just hope maybe
That's
they do throw it a little bit more.
And that was missing several games too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, let's go ahead and let's throw it just a little bit more, maybe run just a little less, and then let's maintain that 31%, and we're looking good. He is a little touchdown dependent compared to some other players, like our previous one, Julio Jones, is he's going to get you a ton of yards and fewer touchdowns. Davante Adams maybe get you a little less yards, around that 1,000 yards, and a lot more touchdowns. So it's a little bit of definitely a difference between those two. So a little bit up and down, but at the end of the year, he's still going to be a top 5 wide receiver, and you're going to be happy that you drafted him.
Yeah. I mean, you think that he's a risk for touchdown regression, but he's regularly
he does it every year.
Double-digit touchdowns. Like it's what he does, like 13 to 14 TDs, right? Like you kind of look at it and you go, he might have a 12 TD floor. Like that's a possible
He's
thing.
Definitely getting to that point, man.
Yeah. Whereas yardage, he's only, I think, once broken 1,000 yards. He almost did it last year. I mean, he missed, I think it was 4
once, yeah. Yeah,
he missed 4 games and he had 985 yards. So I would give him 1,000 yards for last year just on the basis of he missed games. So I would say that year was probably comparable. But that's, again, it goes back to the question of, do you expect this offense to run more and then pass less? Or do you think that it's going to stay where it is roughly? I don't see it going up for him. I don't see them passing more. I just don't see that. So, I mean, this offense is shifting. So who do you have for us at number 1, Justin?
Oh, shocker here, Kyle.
Yeah,
super shocker. We have Michael Thomas, New Orleans Saints.
Never heard.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a real shocker at number 1, sorry, we kind of disappointed you. But I mean, there's a reason. I mean, the guy is freaking dominant. And then some people might look at the Emmanuel.
He got 200 targets though, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's what happened.
But he caught like 190 of them. So.
There's a reason why he got that many targets. One, there wasn't as much, talent behind him when it comes to receiving the ball. But 2, it's because he catches the ball and he can get open on every freaking route. Every route.
He actually performed better with Bridgewater than he did with Breeze last year.
Yeah, that could be a anomaly a little bit, but
I'm not saying that as like a knock. I'm just saying that like that's insane. Like he didn't like Drew Brees, future Hall of Fame quarterback, probably right, goes down and he misses. I think it was 5 games that Bridgewater started, so like just over 5 games that Brees was out, and Michael Thomas didn't disappear. Like
didn't
kept the same pace. Like, I'm still here. I'm gonna dominate more. I'm gonna do it more.
Yeah, we're not worried about his confidence when it comes to Michael Thomas. That's for sure. No, why would you? But we actually like the Emmanuel Sanders pickup a lot here in this offense because they've lacked a real number 2 wide receiver since maybe whenever Marcus Colston was still there. If those two played together, I mean,
Thomas and Colston didn't play together, but
we just missed.
They did have 2. They did have 2 guys at the time.
I gotcha.
But
it's one of those things where I think that actually kind of helps him to maybe take a little bit of the pressure off because I mean, teams were still having to double team him, and he was still catching balls. So I think that only can kind of help him. Maybe the targets come down just a smidge, but I think we're still looking good.
Yeah, I would put him at maybe like minus 30 targets. That's still elite.
That's still elite. That might be pretty aggressive at minus 30
I don't know because I'd have to look. I don't have the stats up in front of me right now. I know that Jared Cook got like 60 targets or something. We were just talking about that. And he's not going to get any more than that. But the wide receiver 2, I am willing to bet, did not get anywhere near what Emmanuel Sanders is going to get.
What was it? And Ted Ginn Jr. maybe?
Probably. Emmanuel Sanders is going to drag at least 100 targets. This dude catches everything too. So like he's going to drag at least 100 targets. And I bet that the other wide receiver 2 last year probably got around 65, 70 targets at most. They got to come from somewhere. They're not adding targets into that offense, guys. It's already maxed out pretty much. So it's got to come out of Michael Thomas's pocket. It really does. So that's the only knock on him. But even still, it's still elite numbers, even if he loses 30 targets. He's still got elite numbers.
He can actually do that and still be number 1.
Yeah. So Yeah. All right. So that's it for us tonight. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you're notified every time that we upload the Best Fantasy Football podcast on the internet. And we thank you guys for being fans of the Upside, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.